Someone asked me the other day what was virtue, and I gave a short answer. The Buddha never gives a short answer about anything, because there's so many aspects to everything. And, they were called the analyzers. And so he really, nothing is ever a short answer, and no one answer is the answer. But one definition of virtue, according to the Visuddhimagga, the path to purification, is that it is is keeping whatever vows we take. He says, and you don't have to take all of them. Some people take 3, some take 5, some take 10. Monastics, the male monastics have 200 and some, and the females have 300 and some, because it just takes so much more for us to get things. And but I mean, and some take 1, and some don't even take any. He says, don't take a vow until it is really your intention to enter into it, to become the vow that you take. And so I never encourage people to rush into doing things, because after you get into it, it's like, oh, well, I want to go this far. I don't want to go this far. And so it's better to take this much of a vow, make this much of an intention, and to live that fully, than to take this and live only half of it. And so in these ways, we stop comparing, or we stop piling up things, vows or initiations, as if they're some kind of spiritual trophies, because they're really not. It's just whatever is my intention and what helps me to live into that. That's what's important. So if you can only take 1 vow, just take 1. If you can only take 3, just take 3. If you can take 5, take 5. If you really want to take 10 and move into that, take 10. But don't just take them to say, oh, well, I do this and I've taken that initiation and I've gotten, they are not spiritual trophies. And the danger of them is better to not vow a vow or to give back a vow than to take one and not live up to it. So now this gets us into and this is not even a Dhamma talk. This gets us into the area of inner integrity, because that's the foundation or the soil in which all of our practice, takes place in. And so that soil, if that soil is contaminated, then nothing that grows will grow well, will grow healthy, and so it's really taking our time to understand things. There's at the beginning of this chapter on description of virtue, he says, when a wise man established well in virtue develops consciousness and understanding, then he succeeds in disentangling this tangle. This was said, but why was it said? While the Blessed One was living at Savatthi, it seems a certain deity came to him in the night, a shining being. So that means not a human being, a being of a different classification. They call them the shining ones. Came to him in the night in order to do away with his own doubts. And he asked this question, the inner tangle and the outer tangle. This generation is entangled in a tangle, you said. And so I ask you, Gautama, this question, who succeeds in disentangling this tangle? And the Buddha went on to say that tangle is the term for, or means craving, that we're constantly caught in craving. Every moment, every of the day, we're engaged, entangled in the craving, if no more than just the craving for being. Then, so that this is we're constantly caught in this tangle of this web of craving. And he said that it's the craving for things one wants for oneself and things that one wants for others, but yet it is still craving. It's what makes us do things, and maybe in the doing of them, we go beyond what's reasonably useful or wise, or but with the best intention. It's because of our craving for something, even for others. So it's not just all about selfish craving, but it is seeing recognizing that our capacity for functioning in a place of equanimity and equanimous living is tied directly to the extent that we can uproot this continual craving. And so, while that wasn't the Dharma talk, it's a good lead-in for what I do want to talk about today. So, and I thought it might be nice to just start with that, because mine started in my usual way. Let no one deceive another or despise anyone anywhere. So that's how I was approaching it until my eyes fell on this explanation of virtue, and it really softened what came to me to share, how I would inform, according to the part of the doctrine that I wanted to share today. So I wanted to talk about living spiritual life, and what it is to live a spiritual life. To live a spiritual life is to be open to the notion that we can live harmoniously with others, and letting that conviction inform our intercourse with others, not just what we say to others, not just the actions we take, what we do for, to, or with others, but actually informing the thoughts about those that we spend our life with. Okay, and what's necessary is a sense of unity with others that becomes greater than our sense of ourselves. Greater, the need for unity becomes greater than the need for self-satisfaction. That's the bottom line. And until we can do that, we're not on the path of pursuing a spiritual life, because it requires a tearing down of the walls between self and others, and an integration and a capacity for us to hold one another with a kind of equalness that levels the playing field, so that there is really no me interacting with you. It's like a blending, like all of the tributaries that flow into one stream, or all the streams that flow into one river. And in the beginning, where they might enter, I've been out on certain waterways, and I'll look, and here's like a blue stream of water, and here's sort of like a green one, and here's like a muddy one, and then they flow into that main river, and they intermingle, and it just becomes one river, one water. So this is the process of embarking upon and entering into the spiritual life. And if we don't do that, then every day will be like navigating an obstacle course. Every day, every situation will feed the next conflict, or it will be a feedback loop onto the last conflict, and we'll never be living in the peace and the tranquility and the joy of being in the present moment, and unified in such a way that there's no demarcation between me and you. This is the goal, and this is the objective. But if we don't know that, then we don't move towards that. That's why I want you to know what the mindset should be for embarking upon a spiritual life. There's no way to have a self-awakening without there being the rooting of the self, and there becomes an integration of self with others. And so so if we're going about it any other kind of way than to move towards, to see, to desire this kind of integration, and some of it is karmic. I mean, you have to have a certain karmic affinity for this. I'm the kind of person who's all my life loved communal living. Some people don't. We're in a culture that it just, for it to be communal living, it has to be in their minds a cult because it's unnatural. But actually this whole sense of being individuated and thinking only of oneself, or certainly what's best for me versus what's best for us, that is the fundamental misuse of the preciousness of human life. But we don't see it because our society is formed and upheld in a different way. So this can be a great challenge because of all of the signs, the sounds, the voices, the signals that we get from our society that tells us what is normal. Like self-preservation is the first law of nature. We just take it and go from there. So these are the messages that we get, and yet there is a yearning for something else, and how to allow that to come forth in us, thinking like even innately, that's the way to go. And then when we try it, it just becomes like almost like a nightmare, and it's can be a great challenge because most of us are not even in harmony with ourselves. I mean, isn't that right? We torment our own selves. We judge our own selves. We have unhealthy and even malicious ways of dealing with and speaking to ourselves. So how can we expect to be any better with others? So that's why the Buddha tells us that we have to spend a lot of time working with ourselves. Not like setting everybody else up like with our story, like this is how I am. This is how I am. This is what I've done. This is what has happened to me. That's all about getting you onto my program. And we don't think of it that way. We don't understand it in that way. But what we're doing is we're trying to fix a ground here, where we, with whatever dysfunctions that we have, can find a degree of safety, So if you know that I have this, then you'll handle me in a certain way. You won't overstimulate me. You won't, it's all about what you won't do so that I can be okay. But yet I say I am not okay. But I resist anything else that could be an alternative to my not okayness by requiring that I take up a different habit or a different practice, or that I have to look at something a different way. As soon as you start with another way to look at it, like why I want to really hold on to my way because I know what this is, I know what I'm doing with this, but are you still suffering? If so, then maybe there is another way. And being open and willing to try and see if there is another way. Now, that's why after all of the intention that goes into and the effort, most spiritual communities, and I'm not talking now just about residential, I'm talking about, because there are very few residential spiritual communities. Most of them are you come and you go, so like churches or synagogues or temples or, other places where we are trying to develop our capacity first for just humanness, and then to be the best human that we can be. But that's why in those communities, these places become places of extreme hypocrisy, places of extreme judgment and backbiting and ill will. And if we make any progress or think we're coming in better than those people there, self-righteousness. That's why we find them in the very places that we're looking for relief, in the very places that we're looking for release, in the very places that we call cities of refuge. And that's why the Buddha starts with an inner training of metta and an outer training of dana. The inner training, metta, loving kindness. And there's so many ways that this can be, expressed or defined. But in its most basic, elementary first step is just loving being kind. It's hard to even tolerate people if you think that they're too kind. So loving being kind. And what that really means, thinking about what we can do to support someone else who's struggling, or who's struggling with something, unwholesome, and deciding how to be less self-absorbed and more respectful and appreciative of their predicament. Not only their predicament, but more appreciative of others' time, or their interests, their efforts, their aspirations, their views. So it's kind when you come. It can be something as simple as picking up after yourself. When in a Dharma hall, after you get out the chair and the chair sideways, setting the chair back up straight, because if you don't do it, somebody else is going to have to do it when they come in to set up for the next group of people that's coming into the Dharma hall. It's like seeing a piece of trash, on the sidewalk and stepping over it because that's not my job. It's like, it's something like that. So loving kindness filters down into being very circumspect about where we are and the level of our appreciation for who we're with in every moment. It's a certain mindfulness around that. And it takes time to cultivate that, but cultivate it we must. And it takes a certain looking to even be able to cultivate it, because we don't really even think about it. I would think of myself being way more loving and kind if I were to see someone and I'm walking out the door just talking with them, as we both of us step over the piece of paper on the trash on the floor, or thinking, always using the bathroom and never thinking I'm the one who should clean the bathroom today. Somebody else does that. We don't pay anybody to do it, but somebody does it. So when do I think it's my turn? Never. It's just the unmindfulness in this kind of way. And if we equated it to, or put it into that virtue in this sense that we could call loving kindness, then we could see, oh, Pannavati, you got work to do. And so we think in these kinds of ways. There's another word I like for loving kindness more, for metta more than loving kindness, and it's goodwill. Because loving kindness can be a little difficult to, it has some kind of like a feeling wrapped up in it. So sometimes we start thinking about loving kindness and it gets sort of touchy-feely. And so then we start thinking we're only being, showing loving kindness if we're being touchy-feely, and it's not exactly like that. So I like sometimes to think of it more in terms of showing goodwill. So goodwill is like the will to do good. the will to do good towards others. It's like offering a helping hand rather than rendering a judgment. It is goodwill is when you offer the helping hand or do something because you recognize some deficiency. It's like doing it, but not with a mind that is criticizing or judging it. Otherwise, that's like putting fresh vegetables in a pot of spoiled stock. It's just going to spoil the whole soup. It's almost better to not do it than to do it with that attitude. I mean, we have to really know what virtue is and what it really looks like. Otherwise, we'll be thinking like, I just give myself, I do all of this, and there's no appreciation, or there's nothing, or I'm tired of babysitting, or whatever. So we have to check. So we have to go back. It's okay if we get off the path, but but in reflecting, when you put what is path up against what I am thinking, then it encourages us to get back on the path. That's all. We don't have to go, okay, woe is me, woe is me. Just when I realize that this is past and I'm over here, get back on the path. It's as simple as that. And the more that we start doing that, there's a great joy in that. This is a joy. I'm just thinking about it right now. The great joy that comes when we recognize that we are off the path. And we recognize that because our sense of contentment goes away. Our sense of joy goes away. Our joy is in once we have glimpsed the path, it's being on it. And when we step off it, then our joy dissipates. So the joy is not in everything being copacetic out there. The joy is knowing firmly where our feet are planted, knowing that we are on the path of the way leading upward, the Buddha called it. And so it has its own fruit. It has its own reward. It has its own benefit, regardless of what somebody else does. It's what I do, where I am on the path, is what brings me joy and contentment, even if the whole world is crashing down, around me. But not only that does it give contentment, it has a sustaining power in the face of adversity or in the vicissitudes of life, or even like in your deepest, darkest moment, or when you're thinking like nothing's going to get any better than this. I know I'm off the path. When the mind goes there, I know I'm off the path. Because the path teaches us how the mind, the attitude that one should have to cause the next moment, to create a different next moment than this current moment, than this present moment. And we are always creating the next moment by the action we take in the present moment, by the words that we speak in the present moment, by the thoughts that we think in the present moment. And so we have to train our minds to make our intentions trustworthy. And how do we do that? The first step is to counter the habitual tendency to judge people. Instead, look at the situation and decide what could make this better, and then jump right in and do that. I remember I was at a retreat in outside of Albuquerque. What's that retreat center? Okay, I was at a retreat center, and they had, it was a heavy rain, like this, sort of like the desert, right? But there is a little short, like rainy season. But because everything is so desert-like and dry, there's not a lot of roots and things to hold water, in the soil. So when there is a rain, it's not a really good thing. And so during the retreat, there was a rain. And I mean, in about 30 minutes, the water was like this at this retreat center. And it was a very famous retreat center. And there were some of us more well-known nationally teachers there. And, you know, when you're around other teachers, you really mind your manners. You watch your behaviors and that sort of thing, right? So we're all there, and this rain comes, and quickly the water just starts rising, and the water was pouring in. The Dharma hall is like below the terrain around it. The water started pouring down into the zendo, and right away people got up and they started doing. And we had to make a train with water buckets. It's just pouring down, and the only thing we could do, you know, was to just keep throwing off buckets of water, because there was like a little ledge, or you know, here where we could throw the water down there. It's pouring here, we're scooping it and we're throwing it down there. So we formed a train, and we were doing that. And there were some monastics there, and I wanted to help, you know, but the general view is that we give what we can give, which is the Dharma, and others do what they could do, which was to gather the buckets of water. And I just hyped up my robe and tied it around took it off my shoulders, tied it around my waist, and hiked up the bottom and tucked it into the top to bring my robe up to my knees so that I could step down in the water. And I just started, you know, because the moment demanded that. You know, the moment demanded that. This had nothing to do with what our tradition says. It has nothing to do with what the moment demanded. All hands on deck. And I jumped down in there, you know. And so right away, some people went and got cameras. They started clicking, you know. And I'm like, don't put this on there, because I'm going to get these letters that say, you know, sister, you know, you disrespected the Dharma or the monastic order, whatever, you know. But once I did that, something happened. All of them started. But it took someone knowing that, you know, we're not made for rules. They're made for us. They're made for us to show us how to, in real life, in real time, how to be on the path, you see. And so if we're not careful, then they just become some kind of mental thing, some kind of intellectual, this is the right way to think or way to be, but we don't actually do it. We don't actually walk in the mindset. We just know the precept, you see. And it shows up. It shows up in our way of life. It shows up in our interaction with each other. It shows up in our discontent and our unhappiness. It shows up. It shows up. And so we have to train the mind in breaking the habitual tendencies that make our intentions untrustworthy. So the other one, and that's like goodwill or loving kindness, metta. The other is dana or generosity. And we think of dana as money or giving money, but that's just the smallest part, a very necessary part for sure, unless we all want to sit up under a tree. But it is a small, you know, it's the least. It's more of cultivating and developing a certain type of attitude that far more than the gift of that's being given is the intention and the state of mind when giving. When giving of your wealth, when giving of your time, when giving of your wisdom, when giving of your effort. It is the mind, the state of mind and the intention that underlies whatever we are doing. And so the Buddha describes it as giving away something that's valuable, as if taking that diamond ring and just whoever catches it, you can have it. It's worth something. Go sell it and get what you need. It's like that. It's taking something, not just giving what's not valuable, not just giving our least, but taking what is valuable, that we know is valuable, and then taking away its sense of preciousness to us, and just offering it and flinging it off as if it is nothing, not holding on to it, or not holding on to the thought of giving this valuable thing, you see. Now, some of us might have to work with that notion, you know, but this is dharmic development, if this is what we're after. If we're not, that's a different thing. But if we are, this is what it takes. So sometimes we have to restructure the very nature of appearances for us to enter onto this path, to even be able to see the doorway. I tell you of a truth, this past Sunday, if you weren't here, you missed something special, because we were in the presence of divine beings. I mean, it was really, really special. It was really, really something. But that comes when our minds start to resonate with and be in tune with good friends who have that same kind of mind stream. And so this giving in this way is a cause for happiness. It's a seed plant. It's a planting, you know, and it's a cause that produces happiness. It produces a present happiness, and it produces a future happiness. So everything we do actually is a seed that produces something. But if you're looking for the seed of happiness, it is in dana. Whatever we offer, offering it with this kind of attitude. And after a while, it becomes one where it doesn't require anything. You don't have to like keep applying, you know, perfume. After a while, it's like just in your skin, a little dab will do you. You know, and as you walk around, the fragrance is there. It just wafts off of you. And you don't think of, there is no conceit, I am doing, or I am giving, or I am helping, I am fixing, or I am. The I just goes away. And there's a doing without doing. And yet nothing goes undone. Yeah. It's something like that. It is it becomes a all hands on deck mentality, you know, and one's sense of one's has no sense of one even doing their fair share. It has no sense of an I at all. It's just seeing something that needs to be done and doing it. But then it begins to expand even more than that. You know how children, like, they want things, but they have no idea about what it takes. Like somebody goes and they work an hourly wage to get them that thing. You know, they just think, I want this, and they can't understand why they don't have it, or they're saying that, you know, we should have this or we need this, you know, without any thought of what someone else has to do to make that possible, you know. But then we start to grow up, and we start to see and understand what it takes, and we start to find our place in making that offering available to others, instead of just putting notes in the suggestion box. We need of this, or we should have of that. You know, it's something like that. And it changes our dynamic in our relationships at home. You know, I remember when I was married, and, you know, I always married a man who could cook, because that's not my, you know, I didn't want to do that. And I didn't mind working. I was a business person. So I didn't want to cook. I didn't want to clean, you know, the house. I didn't want to wash clothes. I didn't want to do those kinds of things. You know, maybe it was just an aversion to the kind of life my mother had. You know, that I was not gonna do that. I don't know. But, or maybe, I don't know. And so I would interview men. I like to go over, you know, because no point in wasting time. I like to go over to their place. First of all, he better have a place. You know, that was number one. You know, but I could go over to their place, and I like to see how they kept, because I'm not picking up after anybody. And whether they had any food in the refrigerator, you know, or like my third husband, he had enough money, he didn't have to have it. We ate out every day. We spent between $3,000 and $5,000 a month back in the 80s eating out. And that was great for me, though. I loved it. I gained 50 pounds, but I loved it. But you know, but when we first started hanging out, you know, like a living in situation, he'd say, "Oh, what are we having for dinner?" I'm like, "Whatever you fixing." You know, and that's how we started going out. He said, "Well, my vote is we go out." I said, "It's mine too then." Especially, I mean, we had a business together. We work hard all day in business, and they start talking about dinner. It's like restaurant is the word, you know, and so I would always, and then they had to be able to sing, because I liked a man with a good voice. You know, I liked music, and I wanted them to be able to serenade me, had to be able to sing. I mean, now if you were good in all the other ways and you couldn't sing, it was no problem with that. You know, there's somebody for you. But for me, I wanted someone who could sing. And so I had my requirements. You know, and I knew what part I was going to provide, because I was good with business. I could make money, and, you know, and everything would be okay. You definitely had to be able, you know, like straightening up and washing clothes. And so there was you know, part of it is when I approached the spiritual life, you know, I had to give up those kinds of notions. I brought them with me into the spiritual life. But quickly, when I began to understand what was required for it, I had to abandon that kind of notion. And what I loved about communal living was there was more people to do things, you know. So I might have to clean, but I don't have to clean everything. I might have to cook, but many hands make work light. I might have to do, you know, and so it became, I wanted to contribute, because when I had a chore, I wanted somebody to contribute, you know, and then after a while it moved from that place to just seeing whatever needed to be done. And so I would join a new church, I would join, you know, a new temple, and when I would go in, I just wanted, first thing is like, you know, anything, I'll clean the bathrooms, the latrines, I'll clean, you know, I just wanted to do anything I could do, you know. And many times they would say no. They say, we just want you to sit here and get the Dharma first, you know, and then let what naturally starts rising up. So that means we have to have some patience with folk. It takes some time, right? It takes some time. And it means that we make up the slack. But if we do it with a cantankerous heart, the opening will never be there, for the realization to enter the space, and people see the joy that comes out of the doing, out of the giving. And that's how we help others grow on this path. So it is recognizing that everything we do is precious and valuable, yet considering it not once we toss it out there. Don't not like a boomerang, not like it's coming back, not with a string attached that I can pull it back. And so in this way, giving is a cause for inner happiness. The Buddha said, if you want to know how to be happy, give. That's how you find happiness. And there's something in the giving that doesn't always feel like giving. In some situations, giving is like the giving of patience, with your partner, with people, in your place of employment, with your neighbors, when they have a different view than you have. Some giving is just giving them the respect of a view that might differ from yours. We don't have to make everybody think the way we think or believe what we believe or embrace what we embrace. And when we talk about this word belief, it's so charged and it's so packed. With our Dharmacharya students the other night, there was one guy, Zen guy, and he was like, I have problems with my Sangha. He's a teacher and he has a Sangha, and he says, I have a problem. My Sangha has a problem whenever you start talking about belief. I said, no, we only have a problem talking about belief when it's something we don't want to believe. There's many things that we believe, when we lay out our clothes for tomorrow, and believe we're going to wake up, or that we still have a job tomorrow, or that we, there's a whole lot of things that we could just loosely say we believe. But then when we start talking about something that gets into an area that challenges our preconceived notions or goes against it, then we got this real big flag around the word belief, And so Pannavati said, well then, okay, scratch that word and just use the word confidence. I have some confidence that this is the way, or that this is useful, or that this will inure to something good. So we have to have the confidence then that generosity inures to happiness, that gives us some sense of delight in being present. Otherwise, what's our purpose? It gives us some sense of presence, some sense of contributing to the present moment with whatever energy, whatever understanding, whatever kindness, whatever substance we have. Yeah? And so he says these two give us a gratitude for life that begins to increase, and our preoccupation with what is wrong in the world will diminish, and it'll become more balanced by or with what is right in the world, or what is right in my life, or what is right. That's how you diminish that imbalance around what is wrong. And when we're cultivating along these lines, we begin to develop a true spiritual life. So we start right here with generosity and with goodwill. Any equanimity or peacefulness that we think we have without there being some perfection of these two is false. It's a spiritual bypass, because equanimity is built upon these. These fruits will sustain us. They will keep our heart in times of trouble, and they will conduce to harmony both within the Sangha or the community of Dharmic friends and without. That means one of a different political party, one of a different ethnicity, one of a different socioeconomic status, one of a different class, culture, educational level. Wherever we put up these walls, it will bring them down. Let no one deceive another, the Buddha said, or despise anyone, anywhere. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you and no danger. May you always be able to meet with the inevitable difficulties of life. Don't try to remember the whole Dharma talk. Just try to take the one thing that like bullseye for you. That's all you have to work with, is that one thing. And when you sit in your meditation, you can reflect on that one thing. In this wise, when we reflect on the one thing, not in, once we recognize that that thing jumps up, sticks up for us, we reflect on what the cure for it is. You know, he tells us suffering, you know, should be known. So we do have to recognize that this is causing me suffering. You know, so we should recognize suffering. But then he says that suffering has a cause. And we should identify, according to those we consider wise, what that cause could be. This isn't anything that has a cause, has a cure. And walking the Eightfold Noble Path, or I like to say ennobling, it makes us noble. The ennobling path is the way leading towards the cure. So we should sit more with ourselves and more with what we see coming up, and maybe talk about it less with others and judge it less within ourselves. That's the biggest thing. If we didn't have to articulate everything that comes to mind and then find someone to agree with us on it, you know, but rather just take that time, see that tendency when it arises, tamp that down. A lot of times I do things that I don't want to do, you know. A lot of times I agree to things and I'm like, this is going to hurt, like we're going to have to get this pet policy straightened out in here. It's true. It's true. But we can get it straightened out without there being a whole ruckus. I remember when the whole issue came up about, Don was taking care of the birds. And he was putting all these wonderful things, and the birds are just flocking like, we're in paradise, right? And then somebody comes with cats. The cats are chasing the birds. Don said, I can't do this because I'm attracting them for the cats to kill them. And in good conscience, I can't do this, you know. So they have to put a bell on the cat so that the birds will know when the cats are coming. And then the one who had the cat said, no, because the cat, you know, putting that on could cause the cat to get hung up on something, putting something around. And so it became, you know, here was an issue clear and present. You know, but I looked at how we worked it out. You know, we talked it all out. Do we bind this one to free that one? I mean, what do we do? How does one work with their own intention, their own understanding, their own integrity, and Don came back and he said, okay, this is what I'll do. He says, the birds that are such pray for the cats, I won't attract them. I'll let them go somewhere else. I'll take care of the hummingbirds, because the hummingbirds, cats can't catch them. And that's what he did, and it just became what could have been a real issue, became a non-issue, executed with wisdom and compassion as each understood it. So now, no bell on the cat, and no, attracting birds for the cats to kill. Everything just perfect. That's the wisdom of wanting, to really wanting to be in a place of unity. Yeah. And so when you go home today, these challenges that you face with your loved ones, I think there's something cruel about this whole concept of family and loved ones, because they sure do bring us a whole lot of grief. Boy, that's our practice right there. Yeah, that's our practice right there. But take something from today's lesson and treat someone a little differently today, and see if it doesn't bring you a sense of contentment, a sense of joy, or certainly a sense that I am able to handle what concerns me today. And I'm even able to not interfere inordinately in what doesn't concern me. That's the other side of it. And if we can do those two things, we will dwell in happiness. And as the Buddha said, we will not deceive another or despise anyone, anywhere.